right, thrilled to have JR Vankov with Elite Sportswear here with us today. Very experienced digital marketing director for a multi-brand apparel company, a customer of ours, a super fan of Fastr, and just an all-around awesome guy. Uh, Great to have you. Thanks for joining, JR.
Thanks for having me, John. Excited to be here.
Yeah. Um, and Listen, you've had like an awesome career journey, and we've worked together for a while. But why don't you just give everyone just a little overview of your background and a little bit more about your role and a little bit more about Elite Sportswear.
Absolutely. Not everyone knows this, but I actually coached gymnastics and cheerleading for 16 years, which culminated in me owning my own competitive cheer and dance studio. I was also a competitive diver in undergrad. Making my way professionally over to Elite Sportswear, where our sports focuses are gymnastics, swim, and cheerleading, couldn't have been a better fit. I'm currently rounding out my fourth year here at Elite. I am the digital marketing director, and my job is really to plan and coordinate all of our digital efforts, from email and SMS content to promotional offers and our website UX, right? Like really catering the experience to be the best it can be for our customers. And a little bit about Elite Sportswear. So we provide gymnastics, swim, and cheerleading apparel. So our three divisions: GK Elite, probably a very public brand right now. After our debut at the Paris Olympics last summer, we outfitted Team USA. So if you watch the gymnastics team, those were our garments. And then our swimwear business is Dolphin Swimwear. And then we have Omni Cheer, which is what I like to, you know, jokingly refer to as the Amazon of cheerleading, right? We have everything and anything you could need, apparel, gear for a cheerleader at whichever price point works for you. That's a little bit about our brands.
Awesome. Well, we've loved working with you, and I think you're out in front, kind of leading with how you think about digital, how you think about content, how you think about your brand and your storytelling. We are getting to the end of the summer, and you did bring up planning, and I know we've been talking a lot, and you've been talking a lot about getting ready for kind of holiday planning, getting ready for the fall, and how success starts now. Would love to have you kind of kick us off a little bit and tell us what's top of mind for you and your brands as you're gearing up here for Q4.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's the thing: holiday success does not start in November, right? It starts now. It starts with having a really great foundation and plan that then you can execute on. So by the time Q4 hits, the best teams are already in execution mode and they're beyond planning mode. When I think about the timelines for our brands, it's August right now, right? So we start pulling our data in July. We are looking at year over year trends. How are we doing, not just with our revenue, but conversion rates? What emails performed well? What didn't? Where was our highest engaged SMS? And where were the highest engaged social posts? What didn't work well, right? Like, because we all know it's not all roses, right? There's some thorns in there too that you've got to acknowledge. And then what we do is in August, we actually have a cross-functional collaboration where we have a cyber kickoff call. We bring in our product team, our brand marketing team, the ecom team, our retail partners, and we talk about what is our cyber strategy. What are our recommendations for promotional offers and how are we going to be different this year? Once we do that, we start to lay out our marketing efforts by channel and then align on those timelines. And then once September hits, I believe it's super important to start bringing in your external vendors, because the people you choose to partner with, for example, Fastr, right? It's important that they understand what your plan is, but also what their role in executing that plan is, right? You want to make sure that everybody knows what, what position on the team they are. So yeah, that's kind of a little
Yeah.
bit about where we go. I always use the metaphor of, like, think about it as an athlete training for competition, right? You don't start the night before the marathon. You've got to start months to years in advance prepping and preparing. Once that September time hits and you've folded in all your partners, by the time early November hits, it's all about execution, right? Because We have Cyber 5, we have Google's Cyber 12, we have what I'm now reading in publications that is Cyber 30, like Cyber Month. Starts early and earlier every year.
It does. And back to kind of the data you mentioned, which was super interesting. You go back and you really analyze the data as one of the first steps. How far back do you go? Like what does that look like, for your business? Like, do you go back multiple years? Do you go back just to, last
Yeah,
Black
absolutely.
Friday, Cyber Monday? Or are you looking at, data since? Like how does that work?
Sure. So, for our brand, I'm looking back all the way to 2022, right? There's a couple reasons for that, right? As I mentioned earlier, our gymnastics business was present in the Paris Olympics. So, looking back at 2024 performance is kind of not always a realistic benchmark. We're going to get a lot of attention, a lot of traffic from that Olympic presence. And so, it's important to look at a non-Olympic year to understand a true benchmark of what our expectations should be as we head into 2025. But then, regardless of that, each year we continue to try to push the envelope, bring in new promotional offers. But what we've got to look at is year over year, how did that stack up to the year prior and the year before that? Obviously, we're in business, so you've got to continue to be profitable. So we want to make sure that we're always either comping or exceeding prior year performance. And so by looking all the way back to 2022, it gives me a good 3, 4 year look back to understand where we've got to go. Additionally, I am an overachiever, right? So I am trying to position myself and set myself up to comp that Olympic year. And what is it going to take? And how are we going to get there to continue to anniversary that sale and bring those customers back? Personally, I think the most underutilized playbook when it comes to cyber is your own data, right? Like every vendor out there is sending me emails about check out our Cyber 5 playbook, read our Cyber 5 like step-by-step guide or our workbook, and it's like those are all fantastic supplements. But
Yeah.
the most important thing that you can have is looking back at your data.
Yeah, I mean your business is gonna, look different than in every other category. And I love your sports background and the competitive nature, because I think it's just a great, analogy for digital, where you want to look back and you want to continue to kind of reach personal best and reach new milestones. And so it's a great background, and I love the way you're thinking about it. So how do you think about like improving benchmarks and improving, year over year? Like what is a good, experiment and return, on efforts look like? How do you continue to kind of move the needle and make progress?
Well, earlier I mentioned how in August we have this, company-wide kickoff call, right? Where we're like,
Yeah.
this is our cyber strategy. I always kick off my annual cyber planning by asking myself and the cross-functional teams to think about the same question. And that question is, how can we be what our customers need us to be this year? That's changing, right? The consumer behavior, the shopping behavior, the expectations for what your on-site, your social, your SMS experience is going to be, it's ever changing. So it's important for us to answer, what do our customers need us to be for them? And that changes. And then if we keep that as our kind of North Star, it really guides us in the right direction to deliver what they want. And if you give your customer what you want, you're going to see that improvement in your KPIs. You're going to see your engagement's going to go up, right? Because you're engaging them in a new way. It's not stale. You're not doing just the standard, 30% off site wide that every vendor is doing. It's being strategic and thinking about like, okay, last year we saw a ton of text message marketing that was happening at, let's say, 9 o'clock in the morning. Let's not send at 9 o'clock in the morning. Let's not get lost in the noise. Let's send at 11. Or maybe the strategy is let's send at lunchtime, because we know our customer is typically a teacher or a parent who they're busy. They're at work at 9 o'clock in the morning. They're starting their day. They're checking the work emails. They're putting out the fires. Let's get them when they have a moment to breathe and be like, yeah, you know what? I want to start my holiday shopping for little Susie now. So it's really knowing who your customer is and then going after it to be what they need you to be.
Yeah. And how do you think about experimenting? You mentioned something super interesting there, just about like, how you interact with your, with your customer. How what are you thinking about and how are you experimenting? And as we get into, this next season, what are some of the things top of mind for you that you're looking forward to testing?
Yeah. So, here's the thing. I feel like right now consumers are so hungry for personalization, whether
Yeah.
that is big or small. They want to feel like the brands that they shop understand who they are and what they need. And let's face it, shoppers are lazy. They don't want to work for it. You've got to give it to them. They want it to be easy. They want you to show them what they need, right? And this can be as small as the addition of product recommendations on your website or an email, or it can be as large as personalization that leverages shopper data, buying behaviors, and then, it becomes hyper personalized on a one-to-one basis. But we're not all there yet, right? So it could be as simple as on-site customer quizzes, which I know Fastr can provide their customers with. Like that's saying, tell me what you're looking for, and then let me help you see what we have for you. So as we look at like what we're testing and how we're getting things ready to go, we're really looking at the power of AI and ensuring that is AI delivering product recommendations at the right time to the right people, um, to ensure that that shopping experience is personalized, right? Like nobody wants to come to your site looking for one thing and you're telling them we picked these out for you and it's, women's clothing when you're a man shopping. We want to make sure you're getting exactly what you came here to find.
The personalization I think is kind of really kind of core to a lot of the change that's happening now. And I love what AI can do for us there. And I know it's early innings and there's a lot of hype around AI and but it is really kind of changing what you can do. You can't have a podcast without talking about AI, right? But
Absolutely.
yeah.
I refer to AI as like the buzzword of the century. Everybody wants to say like we've got these new features and it's AI and everybody's got it. It's just, how good is it and what does it do and how have they trained it? And I will give props to the Faster team, Ryan and the dev team. They know how to train a bot, right? Like they can teach AI to do exactly what you want it to do and have really mastered that. And that's been great to participate in and see. But as it relates to the consumer, I think we look at leveraging AI when it comes to on-site search, right? And being able, based on the customer's browsing behaviors, to predict what type of recommendations to serve them, what products to show them on various parts of our site. It's interesting. So like we talk about having a digital merchandising strategy, right? Like that is just as important as having on-site recommendations. How you're presenting your product and how you're showing it to the customer matters. It's like when you walk into the grocery store, you want to look up and know that in aisle 5, that's where I find the grapes. Well, we want to make sure that you can find the leotard of the pom-poms without having to just go through every single aisle, right? And we want the newest and most exciting product to be right there, easily accessible. We don't want you to have to dig through outdated styles. And so what's been interesting to see is by sport, right? As I mentioned, 3 divisions, it's the approach is not the same. So we can create hyper curated collection experiences on our gymnastics site that really put together products that blend, whether that is color, print, back style, but then you flip it over to our cheerleading division, and the customer's not looking for hyper curated. The customer's looking for show me the products that are most exciting, right? What's trending? They want to see what is everybody else buying so I can make sure I'm buying the latest and greatest for my kids. And so I think what's exciting is like that's real life proof of how AI can be leveraged, but also how it's different for every single business. You can't, it's not a one size fits all, but I will say the trend right now is AI is not hype. It's the price of entry to play in the game. And if you are not paying your entry fees, you're going to get left in the past.
Yeah, I love that. That's a quotable moment right there. And I think I think props to you and the team. I think you're looking and pushing, I think, the envelope on going beyond the hype and actually, pushing your partners and Fastr being one of them to, deliver, real tangible ways to personalize that experience and to, to build that, highly, curated experience for the brands where it makes sense. So really, really interested in, in that. It's almost, we're getting to the point where, every visitor can have, a unique experience, right? And
Yeah.
you do things at scale. And then to your point, do it by brand or
Mhm.
company, right? Can have different,
Yeah.
different UX, but anything we can do to reduce the number of clicks, to reduce the number of steps, that a
Absolutely.
consumer has to go through to make a decision. Um,
Yeah, it's all about that sprint to the cart, right? We
yeah,
got to make sure it's quick and easy and painless. And that's our biggest job. I think I spend a majority of my time working on strategy and how can we improve the UX and how do we make the customer shopping experience even better. It's also a whole nother hurdle because we're not brick and mortar. We're totally e-commerce based. And so it is truly like creating that atmosphere and that experience and interaction with your brand that you get the same time you walk into your favorite store, whether that's a Target, that's a Apple, right? Like we all know shopping at Apple is like a whole crazy beautiful experience and it's curated. I take that same thought and approach to when you come to our websites. It's curated. We pick and choose what you're seeing first and what you're interacting with. And when you interact, where's that going to take you? Right. So it's really about keeping it personal and creating that sense of community that everybody's looking for, even in a digital era.
so you brought up a search and discovery a couple of times, or you brought up search, but we haven't talked about like search and discovery of the brand, and because everything's changing there too. And be very curious and like, has that have all the changes around search and, driving traffic to, to your brands, has it changed your content strategy? Has it changed your view of how you, kind of approach digital and, any examples of things that you're doing?
Yeah. Absolutely. So, I mean, Gen Z's product discovery and habits are fundamentally different than anything we've ever seen, right? They're truly turning to social platforms and over search engines. They want to see what are the influencers on TikTok saying is the best out there? What are the top names in gymnastics wearing? What are the top athletes in cheer choosing? And what are competitive swimmers wearing when they step up to the block? They're looking for that community reassurance that they're buying from the right people and doing the right things. However, on-site search and a solid digital marketing plan, like I spoke to before, those are an integral part of your customer experience, and you can't forget that, right? And then that flows right into your SEO optimization. I can't express enough how important SEO is. And Faster stepped up the game with the auto SEO alt text that generates. But if you're not taking the time to add to it, tweak it, add in your keywords that are relevant to your brand, you're missing out on a huge opportunity.
I love the strategy that you're leading there. I think you're, out in front again, thinking about, how to innovate.
Hey, that comes from having good partners. I said you got to bring your partners into the
Yeah.
fold. We have great SEO partners that help us stay at the front of that game. And, one of the leaders in our organization always tells us, like, surround yourself with people who can do things better than you can and who are experts at the things that you're not an expert at. And I think it plays into so much more than just being a leader in your organization. It plays into the way that you think about business and your business partnerships. It's surrounding ourselves with people. We know we're not the expert coders. That's why we come to Faster and we say, "Hey Ryan, get this crazy idea for me." And then he does it like overnight, which is just Ryan's mad genius personality, right? But I think it's looking at that, right? Like I don't have an SEO expert on our digital marketing team. So I want to make sure if I'm going to partner with an SEO agency, they're going to lead and be the forefront industry leader. Those are the innovators and the creators that we want to align with so that we can be standing right there on the front of the battleground saying, yeah, we're here. We're up front. We got here first. And we might fail, right? But we're going to fail fast and we're going to learn and we're going to keep moving. And that's what's exciting about partnering with companies like Fastr who are on the cusp of creating cutting edge technology that's changing the game.
Yeah, thank you for that. And it's great to have customers too. We view the partnership as, as two-way, right? Hearing from customers like you, hearing what you need, that helps us innovate faster. That helps us kind of stay on the leading edge of what you need as well. And I think you said it, like just partnering is, I mean, it's beyond the company. It's about the people that actually work together day to day, between partner and vendor. So we've enjoyed this
Yeah,
relationship. You've helped us get much, much better. And I think, through that hope, we've delivered a lot of value. So I'd love to shift
absolutely.
gears and just,
Yeah.
maybe dig in a little bit more on the relationship with Faster. Have you talk a little bit about how we've, supported you and, how are we helping kind of, be a good partner for you as you're preparing for the big season ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. So, um, I cannot tell you guys how exciting it has been. When I started at Elite Sportswear 4 years ago, we were on Creator Studio. And watching you guys go from Creator Studio to faster front end where you are now, which is like light year speed and just change the game, what really stood out to me in that transition was two things: the efficiency that it created by having this code that you can place on your website one time, set it and forget it, and anytime the digital marketing team wants to make an update or a change, they just do it. And it's not like, okay, I made a change, I got to get the webmaster on a call, give her the new code, drop in that new code snippet and hope that it updates correctly. No, it's like I made a change, I pushed it live. How many of us as marketers, you push something live on the website and immediately you're like, oh shoot, there's a typo, right? And so you quickly want to change that, but that's been up for like 5, 10 minutes because you've now had to put a new code in there, refresh. With Fastr, it's immediate, right? We publish an update, it goes. Um, on top of that, scheduler, I think if you guys talk to Mike, he will tell you JR was like a squeaky broken wheel for 2.5 years, being like, I need to schedule content. I need to schedule content. Being able, if we're running a promotion that ends on Friday night at 11:59 p.m. Eastern time, I don't have to be the person logging on at 12:01 a.m. to push a new content banner live. I can entrust that it's just going to populate the new content. And I think that goes back to having great partners that we can trust and rely on. I know that I can trust that Faster is going to deliver that experience. Am I always going to go check? Yeah, of course. I'm going to go and refresh the site and make sure nothing broke, but I'm not having to go in my office, sit down and push new content. So I think that's been incredible to watch. And as we head into cyber, I've had the pleasure of being part of some of your guys' closed beta testing, and what's to come is super exciting. Looking at being able to have faster optimize and analytics built right into the platform, game changing. The thing that you guys did great and what I love about Faster is it's about solving problems, right? When we think about what it is that you guys do, you don't just eliminate the need for a developer. You create a scalable, sizable solution to the hurdles that we face as digital marketers, right? And so when I was sitting there talking with Ryan, and I was like, one of the biggest things that is a pain point for me is if I go into other tools like a Microsoft Clarity, I can only see the content spot. So as my banners are scrolling, I have no idea what are they clicking on? Which banner do they love? Sure, I can do some UTM tagging, but that doesn't give me any insights to help give feedback to our creative team to say, hey, this design was working or this layout's not working. And I was like, what would be incredible is if I could see in my experiences that I'm building right in Faster front end heat maps, click tracking, session recording. And Ryan's like, yeah, yeah, that would be a great thing. And then all of the sudden, and I'm not joking on the timelines, John, I gotta keep giving Ryan props. Maybe 10 days later at like 11:30 at night, I get a little random email where there's a Vimeo link in the subject line. And it's a screen recording of Ryan showing me what heat maps is gonna look like inside of the new Faster Optimized. And I was like, well, all right, thank you for solving yet another problem. So props to that team for that.
Well, we love innovating and building product, but we love when customers give us great feedback. So that was amazing.
Yeah.
And thank you. Yeah, thank you for that. And I think you brought up an interesting topic too that kind of takes us back to the beginning of the discussion where, what'll be super interesting, I think, with where we're going with this launch is you'll be able to get that data at not only at the content level and of course at the experience level, but for every version of that you've experimented. So next Cyber Monday, you can look back not only at like the winning piece of content, but you can look at all the different, tests and experiments that were run all in a single place, all where you're doing all where your marketing and merchandising teams are working every day. So we're excited to see that. And this time
Yeah.
next year, have data in your hands to help you, have an even better Cyber Monday in 2026.
And we're here for it, right? And the fact that there's the A/B testing functionality, like we currently use another vendor to do our on-site A/B testing because we didn't have an internal function to do that. And the fact that that's coming in, like it's just one thing after another. It's taking all of the things you need to be successful as a digital marketer and putting it all in one place, which is that faster workspace.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's the view is that we're going to bring together all of the tools and resources that customers like you need in a single place, right? That just removing those additional bottlenecks or having several different
Yeah.
tools to log into to get data and to make sense of. I mean, that's additional work on top of an already busy team. And
Yeah.
so we want to continue to kind of innovate there and bring data analytics and more A/B testing and experimentation to workspace. So thrilled to have you as a customer. Thank you for all the help that you've given us as we've been building the product and continuing to add features and look forward to continuing to kind of hear from you and the team. I guess as we wrap and before we wrap,
Mhm.
just anything that you want to kind of share with the audience, any launches, any campaigns, anything that we can kind of give you some coverage on.
Yeah. I would say stay tuned. There's always something going on. We've had products launching for one of our brands literally every single week. And that's only going to continue. So stay tuned, keep an eye out. Our brands are gkelite.com, omnicheer.com, and dolphinswimwear.com. Great gifts for the holiday season. I'd be remiss if I didn't try to plug some sales, right? But stay tuned. We've got exciting partnerships coming up in the new year. Beyond that, we've continued our partnership with some of our collegiate partners. So there'll be another collegiate collection coming very soon. And we know that the customers love that. So showing that collegiate pride and driving that home.
All right. Well, thank you for that, JR, and thank you again for the conversation today. I got a lot out of this. You're one of my favorite customers, and so thank you for all that you do. Thank you for being a good partner for us as well. And
Yeah.
thanks for joining.
Awesome. Thank you. And if you guys are ever interested in more content and more of my ideas and opinions, feel free to follow me on LinkedIn. I usually try to post some content there at least twice a month for kind of how things are going in the digital market space and my take on it. So thanks again for having me, and I'm excited to see how everyone's holidays go.
All right. All right. Thanks, JR.
All right.
Appreciate it. Have a good day.
Awesome. You too.